My life has been spiraling out of control lately, and I forgot my parachute, so I'm free falling into the abyss that is being a woman in my 20s. As I fall in slow motion, I flash back to my life and all of the choices I've made that brought me to this drastic state of existence. I approach the darkness and wonder if I could have done something, anything, differently to change this outcome. As I analyze and regret every decision I have ever made, I come to the conclusion that, hey, this sucks, but at least I didn't use a real-life murderer as a marketing tactic in order to promote my next dark romance novel. Okay, we have a lot of surface area to cover today, so let's not waste any time. There's a self-published indie author that lurks among us that has made a big oopsie recently, and I couldn't let this slide. Ordinarily, I wouldn't talk about something like this on my platform because this is a small author after all, and this kind of feels like bullying to a degree, but honestly, this has expanded beyond me at this point. At a certain threshold, it's free game. This small author is not the only person to have done, let me rephrase. I don't know if there are any other authors that have done something like this before, but I know that this author is not the only person to use real life murderers as inspiration. So this isn't a new concept. This is a very unique situation, but this is not the first time that somebody has done something exploitative in the true crime realm or sphere. For the sake of this video, I will not be saying who this author is. You can easily find out who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna say their name because I don't want to get sued. I mean, I'm not saying anything that's incorrect, but I'm just I'm just saying I don't really feel like going through the legal loopholes that may pop up in my path, so I'm just going to avoid saying their name directly, but I think we all know who I'm talking about. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, then I promise you weren't going to read their books anyway. So the skinny of the whole story is exactly what I said at the very beginning. There is an author, a dark romance author, who's using Wade Wilson, somebody that's currently on death row. Also, they're not being played by Ryan Reynolds, just to get that confusion out the way, but they're using somebody who is on death row to promote their books at the moment, or at least they did for like a second and a half. They have since taken down the original video, but nothing is truly removed from the internet. We all saw it, babe. It's too late. Also, I have a screen recording of a screen recording of a screenshot of a screen recording of a picture of somebody taking a picture of someone else's phone. Like, I got receipts. So basically what the author had done was do on TikTok, you know how you can do slideshow presentations on TikTok. So one of the pictures, the first picture said, if you like this guy, the guy being Wade Wilson, then you will like my book. If you don't know who Wade Wilson is, truthfully, I don't know that much about the guy either, other than the fact that he is on death row. He victimized a good number of women. Obviously, a lot of people, including people who actually do read dark romance novels, they did not love that author's post because why the hell are you using Wade Wilson as a crutch for your romance novel? Romance novel. We really have to hammer that home. The author explained that the male love interest is on death row, which is similar to, again, like I said, to what Wade Wilson is currently dealing with at the moment. So that's why they felt the need to use them as marketing. But that's not a good excuse. That's not a great excuse at all. Horrible excuse. I don't care. You're using a man that has tormented the lives of many women in their families as a way to secure sales, and nothing about that seemed off to you at all. Like, just because there's similarities doesn't mean that you have to make the comparison. Don't even get me started with the follow-up videos that are on her page, if you can even call them videos, because it's a lot of required reading involved. It's just a wall of text. Like, this isn't Tumblr. I'm not reading all of that. I mean, I did, but if I were an ordinary human being, I wouldn't have read all of that. Honestly, the author, they should have slapped together those paragraphs and made a new book. I'm almost positive that new book would have been a lot better than the one that they already wrote and were trying to promote. But I digress. The first post that the author made after the backlash was a quote from some dead white guy that says, "What the herd hates most is the one who thinks differently. It is not so much the opinion itself, but the audacity of wanting to think for themselves, something that they don't know how to do." I cannot stand people like this. You are not some higher intellectual being simply because you're a contrarian that doesn't follow the herd. You are not Galileo. You're a Galiloser. Albert Einstein douche. Thomas Edison. Voltaire. William Shitsphere. Leonard Dork. Da bitchy. You can see I really had fun writing these. The post then became weaker as they progressed because a lot of people were sending the author threats, which I don't condone. Why is this on my face? One day people will be able to articulate their grievances without having to stoop to a lower level to get their point across, but I fear that day will never come. Don't worry guys, I'll speak for you with more eloquence, with more grace, with more poise, more dignity, more tact. I'll say the quiet thing out loud, but I'll do it with decorum. Seriously though, don't ever send threats to people even if you think they deserve it, because that'll only get you in trouble. Then the author started posting poor attempts to justify their actions by saying that women are keeping up with real events that are unfolding about Wade Wilson, which proves that women enjoy these types of stories. And the author also pointed out that their book isn't explicitly about Wade Wilson, but their cases are similar. I already said that. Duh! Then there's another post that is talking down on people who are sending mean messages their way, and they're saying that a lot of people love these serial killers and there's nothing wrong with loving those serial killers. I'm gonna have to stop you right there, Wolfgang. I'm a doofus moats fart. I'm not disagreeing with the first part about the insults and stuff that's being thrown their way, but also at the same time, I'm not gonna pretend to take the moral high ground because I've been making these awful puns about famous influential figures in history. It is awful how people are taking it extremely personally, and I agree that being nasty towards the author is unproductive at best and dangerous at worst. However, it actually isn't okay to be obsessed with people who hurt countless innocent civilians, especially women. It is no secret. I said this during my Christmas Kids video that all of you love so much for some reason. I still don't get it, but okay. I have one-sided beef with the true crime enjoyers due to the morally questionable nature of the entire genre. Using stories about victims for entertainment purposes will never be acceptable in my eyes. Never, ever, ever. I can't stand it, especially when the families of the said victims are not involved in any way or even consent to these stories being told. You know that Dahmer series that came out not too long ago, like a couple years ago? Turns out the families of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer did not appreciate that wound being opened up again. Ooh, I know, shocking. Listen, it doesn't matter how interesting you think Jeffrey Dahmer is. There are people who are alive and still suffering from the damages that that man caused all those years ago. While we're on the topic, I am aware of the insufferable group of people who do idolize and damn near worship these horrible people simply because of their bad boy images. And they think that they're innocent, or the people who that they hurt, they deserved it for some reason. I don't know what weird mental gymnastics they go through, but hey, they found a way. For example, the Columbine massacre, there are people who genuinely are in love with the perpetrators and make fan accounts and everything. I've seen them. Thankfully though, those fan accounts, we don't really hear about them very often anymore, unless I'm totally out of the loop. I don't know if the fan base has expanded or grown over the years or not. My point is that the author is right about people being obsessed with horrible people and their stories. All right. Yes, that observation is correct. The problem is not fully understanding how taboo and hush-hush those serial killer lovers really are, because they know that the rest of society has shunned them. They find solace in their carefully curated communities in their little corner of the internet far away from everybody else. And listen, okay, as messed up as some of these dark romance books can be, dark romance readers are not idiots. When Wade Wilson's crimes were first reported, this was a couple months ago I saw this, there were people who read dark romance, and some of them, I will admit, some of them were swooning. There were people in the comment section, because I've seen videos on TikTok of Wade Wilson. There were people under the comment section who were swooning for Wade Wilson because he reminded them of a dark romance character or whatever because of the tattoos and stuff. Good Lord, you people are too easy. Thankfully though, that's the minority. For as long as morals live, will always be the minority. Bigger creators who are into dark romance and are very vocal about that, a lot of those bigger creators and I want to say the majority of dark romance readers treat real life criminals as criminals and do not find any attraction to them whatsoever. The kids, they may be all right, but for the most part, I want to say that the majority of dark romance readers do know the difference between fiction and reality, and they don't muddy those lines. Some people do, but for the most part, it is generally accepted that you should not ever cross that line. I will dive deeper into this point a little later because I'm starting to get ahead of myself here, but I just wanted to clarify that before we continued. I've always been conflicted about dark romance as a genre, and a lot of people have their opinions about it, and unfortunately, I'm one of those people who likes to see both sides, and I can understand and fully put myself in the shoes of both sides. Back to the incident at hand, though. So the author begins in their post to state that they don't condone the actions of real serial killers, and they are trying to defend writing their book altogether, which I think is a pointless tidbit because the issue was never with the book itself. It's how they decided to market it. They decided to tie themselves to a real person who has committed egregious crimes, dare I say crimes that are especially heinous. Comparing your fiction book to real events that are unfolding in real time is such a dick move, a Thomas Edison move. I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with reading books about fictional characters who are serial killers to an extent. Horror and thriller books are entertaining, and I enjoy those genres. The author tried to clarify that the whole point of them comparing their book to Wade Wilson was because they wanted to attract people who are into crime-related books. And hey, I can kind of understand where they're coming from with this logic, but it's still a romance book. You're romanticizing the whole thing. You're romanticizing a real person who's hurt real people. You didn't do it intentionally, but that's essentially what you ended up doing. Impact over intent. How many times do I have to tell you this? The final post, as of me scripting this video, is a long-winded one. It's a lot of reading. Jesus Christ. No, seriously, the amount of reading I've had to do on this person's post, I might as well just log that into Goodreads and hope it counts for my reading goal because yeesh. But yeah, this last post was the closest we have gotten to an apology, except the words "I'm sorry" never really came through. At least I don't think I ever saw the words "I'm sorry." Let me double check. Nope, never saw the words "I'm sorry." The author ended up saying that they were trying to connect with their true crime lovers and the dark romance lovers with their book, which, I'll circle back onto that in a second. But the author also said that they were comparing the sentencing that their male main character has in their book because it was similar to Wade Wilson, again, for the millionth time. Right? I feel like a broken record at this point. Sorry if the background keeps doing that. I can't control that. I feel like it's like a flashbang. The author said that they never meant to hurt the victims and that this was just all one big misunderstanding. And they also talked about their mental health. And so they said that they took their original post down and yada, 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 yada. I'm not going to diminish their feelings about the backlash that they've received because they're entitled to that and only that. But I'm ripping into the rest of this statement. Under zero circumstances, zero, none, zilch, should there ever be an overlap between true crime and dark romance. Ever. That is where you screwed up. They tried to break the one unspoken rule that dark romance readers have. Don't mix fiction with reality. Despite my mostly negative opinions and feelings towards dark romance novels, I don't really judge people who do like those books, mostly because I don't care enough to do that. I mean, I judge a little bit, but like not a lot. I don't actively judge. Like me right now, sitting here talking about this, I feel very indifferent. People have their fantasies and I'm not their mother. I will say there's a lot of stuff that appears in dark romance books. I'm like, you guys should be in jail for liking this, but it's technically not illegal at the same time, so it's like, whatever. I give up. I have said before that the majority of dark romance readers are in agreement about the Wade Wilson situation and have zero interest in him as a person. So with dark romance, a lot of the attraction is confined within the fictional realm and doesn't ever overlap into their real life. Allegedly. I respect people who have that control to contain it within fiction. But unfortunately, the loud minority of dark romance readers, or I guess now dark romance writers too, are not engaging in the genre correctly. Dark romance dances the dangerous tango of moral ambiguity. One wrong move and you've officially lost your mind. There are unfortunate people who do this dance, but they blur the lines of fiction and reality, and they end up stepping on some toes. When you're dealing with dark romance, you have to understand when to turn it on and turn it off. Your stalker boyfriend may be swooning you on paper, but the second you close the book, that's when it stops being cute. Full stop. End of story. Literally. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be reading dark romance. And I stand by that 10 toes down. Again, I don't judge people who read dark romance. Some people do. Some people are really, really, really harsh about it. I don't have it in me to give that kind of energy. I'm just going to avoid you and leave you alone. But if you're not following that, then that's when I have to come in and intervene. Oh, world's coming. Oh, so scary. You better behave or else world's coming after you. Like I said, some of you will disagree with me about that. And I'm not trying to sound wishy-washy and non-committal to any one opinion. This is just one of those things where it's an uphill battle that's not worth my time. There's just so many things in this world to worry about, and quite frankly, the dark romance readers are very, very low on that list. All of the criticisms that people have towards the dark romance genre, unfortunately for the dark romance readers, I have no choice but to agree because they're spitting. They're making some good points. And trust me, I've tried to read dark romance books. I can't do it. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because, the only dark romance book that I've actually successfully read and enjoyed is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Loved that. And I liked that book specifically because the romance in it is consensual. That's where you guys lose me, is when you start playing with the non-con stuff. That's when I'm like, no. Suddenly, I love it when both parties are consenting to everything that is being laid out on the table. Butcher and Blackbird is a dark romance because of the fact that it's a romance between two serial killers and they kill bad people. In a way, they're kind of doing the world a favor. They're having a light Yagami moment over there. Despite it being a romance between two serial killers, the romance itself is actually consensual and kind of wholesome if we ignore all of the gory details of everything else about it. And that's the only dark romance book so far that has actually successfully hooked me in. I tried reading a Rena Kent book a couple months ago. I didn't even finish the first chapter. I read The Ritual by somebody, Chantel something. I read that whole thing and I hated every second of it. Should have DNF'd it, truthfully. But that was back when I liked torturing myself. I will say that there is a separate incident that happened on Book Talk, specifically the dark romance people, that rubbed me the wrong way. There was another creator who is on TikTok that's pretty popular, and they were getting backlash because she said in a video, like, she read a blurb on the back of a dark romance novel, and she called the book weird. Like, I don't know why dark romance readers were getting so worked up about this, because this is the whole point of reading dark romance, the dark parts of it. Like, you're reading some really twisted things. I thought y'all were proud of that. I'm confused. Most people are gonna find you strange for liking the idea of a man stalking you and coercing you to be with them romantically. Yes, that's weird. That's not normal. That is outside of the norm. It's so embarrassing when people get defensive about that instead of owning up to it. Like, you knew what you were signing up for when you started reading these books. It wouldn't be dark if everybody was okay with it. I read this book recently. It is Tampa by, what's her name? Alyssa Nutting. This book is about a 26-year-old middle school teacher who seduces her 14-year-old students. And it is very detailed. It's graphic. Her fantasies, graphic. And guess what? Most of you right now probably had a gut-wrenching reaction to that just now. Just the mere idea of this book. Yes, this book is diabolical. It is disgusting, horrific, absolutely vile. And anybody who says that about this book would be 1,000,000% correct. It's September. September means it's basically Halloween in my eyes, which means that I'm picking up books that make me feel like I want to crawl out of my skin, and this book did the job. That's why I read it. That's the only reason why I read it. I was intentionally seeking out books that made me want to vomit, and I found one. I still feel a little sick. I just finished this book a couple hours ago. I still feel sick. I'm not ashamed that I read it. I seek out shit like this. I am not expecting anybody to want to read that unless you want to feel that unsettling feeling with me. But for the most part, Nobody wants to feel that. And I'm not gonna feel offended that people wouldn't want to read that book. So, dark romance readers, chill out. Most people don't want to read that shit. You should know that. So the theme of tonight's party is pretty simple. All right? Don't use real crimes to promote your books because now your career's over before it even began. I say use a different pen name and try again in 6 months, because at the end of the day, I truly don't think that the author is trying to be malicious. I don't think that the author was intending to provoke anybody. Maybe somebody could argue that this was rage bait and they knew exactly what they were doing. Everybody loves to say that it's rage bait when somebody's being obviously awful, but I don't know, you guys. Some people are genuinely just idiots. This was just an extremely tone-deaf situation, and hopefully the author, they will learn from this. I personally don't think that their whole writing career should be over because of this, but maybe it's because I feel bad for calling them William Shakespeare and Farts Kafka and Edgar Allan Pope and Ernest Hemingway and George Orwell and J.K. Rowling. I didn't need to make a pun out of her name because she's already a joke. My friends, that is the whole video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I cannot say that I recommend reading Tampa. You can if you want to, if you think you can handle it, but Jesus Christ, man, I'm still like in shock. Anyway, if you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, do whatever you want. I really don't care. All the links to my social medias will be linked down in the description. I stream on twitch.tv/worldstar with 2 R's, not by choice. If you'd like to hang out, I have a Discord too if you want to join. I ping the Discord whenever I have new videos. If you want to know exactly when I'm uploading stuff or when I'm doing certain things, then it'll be most beneficial for you to join the Discord. If not, don't worry about it. And I'll see you guys when I see you. Really gotta go pee.